Hello and welcome. My name is Jake Daniels. I'm going to be doing a book review on In the Devil's Snare, The Witchcraft Crisis of 1692 by Miss Mary Beth Norton. This book was absolutely fabulous. I'm not a big history reader. I love the subject of history. I love learning about it, but reading literature like this is hard for me. I have a hard time focusing, but this was really fabulous. I love that she took a completely new approach to the witchcraft trials. Was typically seen as a misogynistic sort of thing, um, but I thought it was fabulous that she went outside of that to really cover herself. I want to read this little excerpt from the introduction. Um, so this is from the third paragraph on page 3. It's the first page of the introduction. Those months encompassed legal action against at least 144 people, 38 of them male, most of whom were jailed for long periods, 54 confessions of witchcraft, the hangings of 14 women and 5 men, the pressing of another man to death with stones, and the deaths in custody of 3 women, a man, along with several infants. So that wasn't word for word because I just kind of reading over that again. Um, so a majority of the people affected by this were women and children, and women were the ones that initially had made the claims. It was 2 little girls um, had made claims of being affected by witchcraft, um, and they started this whole thing because they claimed it to a minister, and the ministers became very influential because they were Puritan religious leaders, which was the faith of almost that entire area at the time. It was all Puritan English settlers. So this issue came about. I thought it was kind of interesting. I drew a comparison in my life. I'm doing a play right now called Mrs. Packard. It's by Emily Mann, set in 1860s Illinois, a little bit later than the Salem witch trials. But this woman is married to a Presbyterian minister, has liberal views, and she's thought that she's crazy because she's a woman who's not obeying her husband, and she is committed to an insane asylum for this. And it's all about her struggles, her strifes, and not being believed. She denies again and again and again and again and again that she is crazy. She knows she's completely sane. She has her own viewpoints. She thinks for herself. Um, and I drew that comparison to the women, especially the ones that were killed. They knew that if they, or towards the end of the trials, I guess they knew if they had admitted to witchcraft, it could have saved their lives. They would have their reputation and they would have that bad viewpoint of themselves, but it would have saved them from death. But they still denied it because that reputation it was so much worse. I guess the living out a life as a witch, um, quotations there, was more difficult than just going through the pain of having that trial done and not admitting that you are what people say you are. So I thought it was fantastic that she made that approach and that she mentioned that she completely dropped that approach and that she made a comparison with the First and Second Indian Wars, that they may have caused this indirectly. Those wars made the English people fear for something, a darker outside force, something that they couldn't really handle, and made it very difficult for the people of that time to understand what was going on. There were many Indian raids, and usually in a brutal manner. It was a very bloody time. A lot of things people didn't understand. The Puritan ministers were saying that them being on that land and moving westward was they were conquering it for God. It was land owned by the devil, and they were conquering it for God to bring light to those areas. So these people already didn't feel safe. They were paranoid, scared of a dark force that was out amongst them. So it caused this kind of paranoid air that might have been a trouble or might have been an issue for them. I thought it was also very interesting. I looked up some reviews afterwards because some of the literature in this was kind of challenging, and I wanted to check myself to make sure that I was understanding the things I was understanding in the correct manner. So I looked up a couple reviews, and one of them really stuck out to me. He drew a comparison from the government and the people in the times of the witch trials to the government and the people after 9/11. It was an era of fear from terrorism and an era of fear from something like a dark force. I guess their form of terrorism. It wasn't international or anything like that, but the Indians were making all of these little raids and things, and it was making it very difficult for the people. So I thought it was fabulously interesting that he drew those comparisons because Mrs. Norton does not draw those comparisons in her book. Um, she keeps it strictly historical. However, I thought that comparison was very interesting because there were a lot of governmental troubles at the time, and there were a lot of agencies like the FBI used 9/11 as an excuse to get into people's private lives, and if they were on a government watch list, to make it very difficult for them to do anything. They were inside people's privacy that they were promised and made it difficult, as did the government during the time of the Salem witch trials. They were all over the place. They were in everybody's business, I guess, making it very difficult to live out a normal life, and it just kept the atmosphere of fear going. So I thought this book was fabulous. I love that those comparisons were drawn. I like that she took a different approach and blamed it on kind of an environmental issue rather than just it was misogynistic, which is a very, I guess, kind of an easy conclusion to come to. I like that she went deeper into her research. So all in all, I recommend a read. Just to cover one last time for you. Fabulous, fabulous book. Thank you very much.